Automation editing. You can view automation over here on the right. So I have this audio track selected. Over here right now, the mixer is selected. So I can automate any of these parameters. You notice I have utility, autopan, and an EQ. And what shows up over here is utility, autopan, EQ. And the mixer will always show up. So let's say I want to automate the autopan. And let's say I want to change the amount. So an easy way to do that is either to select amount. But if you can't necessarily find it, you can just select amount. And notice how this changes back to amount, even if I have something else selected. A dotted line means there's no automation being done. But once I click on this line, I can add automation and it turns into a solid line. If you have a lot of automation going on, sometimes it's confusing and it might be hard to find. They help you out with these little red dots, so I know that something in autopan is being automated. Now what's being automated? Oh, the amount, because there's a red dot next to it. But let's say you have a whole bunch of plugins, a whole bunch of processing going on. You can use show automated parameters only. So now when I go over here, only the automated parameters show up. So now it's only the autopan that's showing up and nothing else, because nothing else is being automated. If you're automating several lanes at a time, you can click this little plus button. So right now, autopan amount. If I click plus, it adds a whole separate lane for just automation for the autopan amount. So now let's say I want to adjust something else on autopan spin. I can click another plus arrow, and now I can watch myself automate both of these at the same time. And if I don't like these automations, I can either click these little dots to have it disappear, and it goes back to being a dotted line, or I can right click on the automated parameter and delete automation, and then it all goes away. By clicking B or activating the pencil draw tool, you can do some step automation if you want to move up in steps. I like to do that for, let's say I step up the end and let's say halfway through, and then I'll go in and I'll click the little dots to move the rest of them around so I can get what I want. By holding down Option, you can bend the automation. Also, if you have the draw tool activated, if you hold down Option, you can draw a more finer line. Versus without it activated, now it's just drawing for that section. And another thing to be aware of is that if you have the automation parameter selected in this top view, if you delete something, if you want to delete some of this automation, it will delete the entire track. But if it's in this lane, then it'll only delete the automation. Now, if you drag the clip, the automation goes with it. But you can lock the automation by going to Option, Lock Envelope. So now when I drag this, the automation stays. Usually I don't keep that on though. It's really rare that I use that. Specifically for audio tracks, you can also automate the fades. So this is an audio track, but if I go over to the side with the rest of the automation, I can select fades, and I can fade the beginning and ending. Ableton automatically creates fades in between every break. So if I do Command E here, notice how it automatically creates 2 fades. This just helps with pops and clicks, so there's not immediately abrupt starts and stops. And this will allow me to fade the intro and outro. I feel like it would be easier to show you here. See, it'll change the volume of the beginning and ending. So I can drag this over here and you can see it getting smaller. It only works up to the loop. So this is a loop break right here. This is where the loop continues, and I can't move it past this point. If I were to consolidate, then I would definitely be able to move it all the way over. Like this one. This one's much longer. There's no looping involved, so I can move this all the way. And again, that's an audio only thing. Midi does not have that available. Once you feel like your song's ready to export, you want to make sure that your selection encompasses the beginning to the end. So right now, if I export my track, it'll only export the selection right here. A lot of people confuse this and wonder why their bounced files, wave files, are only like a few seconds or like a minute when their entire song is 4 minutes. So what you want to do is make this selection encompass the beginning to the very end. Maybe chop off some of the end if it's a little too much. Make sure that you select the top so your selection is the entire track. It'll bounce whatever your selection is. So right now from this point to this point is where it'll bounce. But if I click up here, it's from beginning to end. And then you just go over to File, Export Audio Video. You can export the master track or any of the individual tracks. You can also set the render start and end time here, but I feel like it's a lot easier just to use the loop tool. You have the option to select between wave and AIFF, and you generally want to keep your sample rate at 44:1 and your bit depth at 16. You can decide to directly upload to SoundCloud or upload video if you have some video in your project. And when you're ready, just click export and it'll export your track as a WAV file. Just know that the WAV file is going to be pretty big. If you want it to be smaller and give it to somebody, then you might want to bring it into iTunes and create an MP3.